So if you want the best decks to climb to Legend for the end of the season, you come to the right place. You have the weekend, so you guys have 2 days to do it, and let's see if these decks will help you get there. So you have Face Hunter. Face Hunter is the first deck to start off. I think it's the best deck in the game. I think it's better than Aggro Druid. Against Aggro Druid, I'm 50-50. The only matchups this deck sucks against are Paladin, which is fairly popular, and Shaman, which is not very popular at all. So most of the time, you should actually have a pretty good matchup against most things. I'm literally 20-2 against Mage, and I'm 14-1 against Rogue, and I am 7-1 against Warlock. Like, if you're playing against those things, you will absolutely destroy the meta and climb super duper fast. So I would recommend this. Next is surprisingly Deathrattle Hunter. I have been an advocate for this deck for a really, really long time. I think it's super duper strong. I played against it several times today, and I won maybe 1 out of the 4 games playing against it as Face Hunter, which I just said was one of the best decks in the game. Yes, this deck does have its fair share of bad matchups, but it's constant pressure, it's good draw. The fact that all of your minions, after they die, summon more minions means it's hard for a Quest Mage to deal with it, along with maybe an Aggro Druid. They can't deal with your constant tempo. And then you have insane late game with Illidari Inquisitor and Deathspeaker Blackthorn to basically say if the game goes long, you have 2 very solid win conditions to close out the game. And thin out your deck, because Deathspeaker Blackthorn is basically also a draw 3 that immediately gets played. So I would recommend this deck quite heavily. It only needs the 1 legendary, and I actually think this deck is going to be good with the MINISET because the new card that summons 2 minions actually works really well in this deck. Just side note, I'm probably going to play it here because it let's just say turn 6, you pull out an Illidari Inquisitor and a Razorfen Beastmaster. Next thing you know, you have a Deathrattle trigger, Illidari Inquisitor out on the board turn 6, and maybe have a weapon and you do a ton of damage. So I think this is really good, not just for now, but for the MINISET as well. Third is Secret Libram Paladin. Secret Libram Paladin is surprisingly strong. Actually, not so surprisingly. I talk about this deck every single time. At this point, you should already know that it's strong. But it doesn't look like it'll be that strong because it doesn't have a lot of early game power. But if you're able to get an Elder Attendant or a Knight of Anointment, then pump them up. Then play Alliance Bannerman, which draws you a card and then also pumps up your minions. Next thing you know, you have a ton of late game pressure. Cariel Rome is a Rush Divine Shield minion. Elder Truthseeker can become a 5/7, not including the pumps with spells that can make him even bigger. Divine Shield Taunt minion, insane healing. This deck basically has everything. It also has some decent removal with 1 Libram of Justice, and again, some Rush minions and good minions on board. Overall, I think this deck has a lot of potential. You could run the secret version with Omayogs and Galloping Saviors, or you could run the normal version. I like the secret version better. I think it's a little bit stronger, but either one work. It depends on what you want. The other version would just run like an extra Libram of Justice and 2 City Taxes and maybe a couple of other cards instead of the secret package. But overall, both are fine. Both will have about above a 50% win rate. So I would recommend them both. Next is Token Demon Hunter, and this is weird putting it at 4, but I think it actually is worse than the other 3 decks on here. I think all 5 of these decks are very good and very close together. You will find success with all of them, but Face Hunter is good against, or so strong against so many decks that it has to be up there. Libram Paladin statistically already had about the same, if not a slightly higher win rate depending on the day, and Deathrattle Demon Hunter I think is a hidden gem that basically takes the super annoying Greybow combo, Greybow from Token Druid, and makes it literally the entire deck. The Deathrattle sticky minions always summoning more dudes is just what Deathrattle Demon Hunter does. Yes, it's a little bit weaker, but it doesn't matter because it's throughout the entire game. You don't need to draw one specific card to do it, and then Deathrattle Demon Hunter is better late game. That being said, I know I just said a lot of negative things. This deck is still insanely strong. You have really good tempo. You got pumps. You got insane card draw with composting. You got insane board presence with the Oracle of Elune, Greybow. You've got good early game with a taunt minion and the Razormane Battle Guard. This deck is still phenomenal. I'm just trying to argue the point as why I'm putting it 4th. Let's jump into the last one. The last one is actually Quest Mage, and it's because I think it actually has a good matchup against a lot of decks. Basically, every control deck or slower deck, this deck will do well against. And it actually does fairly well against minion-based decks, like Aggro Druid, for example. It does really bad against Face Hunter and Aggro Shaman, basically decks that can do direct damage, but if you are playing against one that's more minion-based, even Paladin to some extent, as long as they don't have a really well-timed Omayog, can be a pretty decent matchup. I run Antonidas in my build because it counters other quest mages. It basically gives you another win condition other than the quest completion, which can be really, really helpful. But if you don't want to run it, you could run Wand Thief. Honestly, Wand Thief is probably better. I just like gimmicking people with Grand Magus Antonidas because I'm a content creator and I love doing stuff like that. The last deck on this list is Evolve Shaman. I think Evolve Shaman is absolutely spectacular. Not only do you have decent early game with a couple of 2-drops, and 3-drops, but your mid and late game are insane, being able to resummon giant boards of big minions. You could run a couple of different builds where you could run the Clacker along with the Pitmaster if you want a couple more things to evolve instead of, say, the Restaurant Viper and Venomous Scorpid. You could run a slightly different build. I just like the flexibility that these guys gave, and sometimes destroying a weapon like a Bulwark or destroying a weapon like a Doomhammer can be game-changing. So it's up to you on that one, but this is just a hidden gem. I ended up going, I think, 19-5 or 19-4 with this deck. It's a lot stronger than you'd think. Sometimes you'll low roll and it feels bad, but most of the time it'll feel pretty gosh darn good. So those are the main decks on this list, but there are a couple of other ones that I think deserve a shout out that I'm going to say right now. Big Warrior is fine. Control Quest Warrior is fine. I just think that their win rates are like at just about 50% on Hearthstone Replay, so they're not quite as strong as I think they should be to help you climb. Other decks on this list are, Quest Warlock. Quest Warlock is a good deck, just kind of hard to play. Same situation with Garrote Rogue. It's just very hard to play. I wouldn't recommend getting into it, especially with a new mini-set coming around, where you're going to have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. And then Hand Buff Paladin is, don't get me wrong, actually pretty strong. It's just worse than Libram Paladin. Like, if you're going to play a Paladin deck, just play Libram Paladin, unless you don't have the cards, in which case Hand Buff Paladin is still fine. And that's basically it. There aren't really any more decks I would recommend to climb as of right now. You can try OTK Demon Hunter as well if you want, but again, that feels kind of weird to me. You can try Poison Rogue, but weapon removal counters it too easily. There are just a lot of decks that are good, but not quite as good as the other 6 that I mentioned. So you can try any of the ones that I mentioned, whether it be in this segment or the main segment where I listed the top 6 decks. But until next time, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys climbed to Legend in the last couple of days, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.